How are you? Welcome to Crossing the Streams. This is Jeff Dwoskin, and I. Sorry, we were supposed to have one more guest, but he's not here, so maybe he'll be in the comments. Anyway, it's good to be here. We've got an amazing show. We've got a special, very special guest today, Bill Dettloff. But before we Dettloff.
No, Dettloff. You had it right the first time.
Right. But you gave me a look like I said it wrong. I was just like, oh, you blew it. All right, but we're gonna do a theme song first. Well, Bill, take the honors.
Okay. Here's a story of some lonely fellows who spend way too much time watching the TV. All of them have jobs and friends. Well, not really. Just between you and me.
All right, Bob.
They made a live show out of their hobby. Every TV watcher's TV watching dream. Jeff, Ron, Sal, and Bob, and there's Howard and Bill. They call it Crossing Streams.
And then one day they went live on all the platforms. You could hear the people laugh and shout and scream. Still can't find another word that rhymes with platform. But man, we crossed the streams.
We crossed the streams. We cross the streams. That's the way we do it. Here we cross the streams.
Boom, 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 boom,
boom. So you got through it, Bill. Good job.
Thank you.
All right, let me take that off. And then we do have a special guest, Bob. This is one of Bob's favorite people in the world. So I'm going to let Bob introduce Bill. Go ahead.
All right. Yeah, this is a big deal for me. Now, people that watch Crossing the Streams regularly know that about half the time I'm reviewing boxing documentaries or movies because I am a huge boxing fan, former boxer. And our guest tonight, also a former amateur boxer, former senior writer for the Bible of Boxing, the Ring Magazine, and currently editor-in-chief of Ringside Seat Magazine, my pal, Mr. Bill Dettloff. How are you, sir?
I'm very well, Bob. Hi to you and hi to Jeff. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it.
Yeah, it's great to have you here. And Jeff, thanks for having us old pugs on here. It's old pug week here.
I'll never quite forgive you. If I have the opportunity to forgive you, I won't for making me sing that awful song. But
first off, Bob wrote that. Bob wrote that song.
I told him that
you just broke his heart and
no, it's not. My heart is not broken. I thought you acquitted yourself beautifully. That was a very nicely done rendition.
Thank you. I had to exit my body and do it like next to myself. I had to have an out of body experience in order to do it, and then come back in. But
you did it. Are you back in yourself? Are you?
I am.
Yourself?
I am.
Okay.
Yes, I am.
Great job.
Thank you.
Everyone has this is Ron. He's usually here. Nice, Ron. Let's see. Oh, and any friend of Bob is a friend of Jerry's. Thank you,
Jerry.
And Lee is here. Oh, that was 3 hours ago. Hopefully Lee made it. Lee's one of our biggest fans.
Yeah, we love Lee.
And all right, so real quick, couple of things real quick. The drinking game. So the drinking game, the rules for the Crossing the Streams. If we drink on the show, which is usually Bob or Sal, then you drink. If we have a technical issue, you can count one of our guests not showing up through technical issues as one. If you're really wanting to drink, love you, Larry, miss you. If we have to be as one platform the show is on that we're reviewing, drink. If we forget to, if they put one of you guys comments on the screen, drink. Jerry, you got to drink. Ron, you got to drink. And if we forget someone's name, whether it be an actor or such, everyone drink. So that's the at-home drinking game. Oh, and also, if you're in Detroit, go to ourdetroit.com. Please vote for Live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin comedy show for best podcast. There's 200 categories. Pick one, best comedy club, one night stands and like all that kind of stuff. For some reason, there's no comedian category this year, but there is podcast Live from Detroit. Please go to ourdetroit.com. The link is right there in the banner. I would so appreciate that. Bob, did you vote for me?
I voted for you multiple times. I did. Yes, I voted for you. That was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it probably was. I keep telling people. I had the most fun the other day. I made one of those fake headlines for Wordle. Local man solves.
Yeah, that was funny.
It blew up on Twitter.
I thought that was funny. That was and not much is funny about Wordle. The whole thing is just getting so played out so rapidly.
So
Good job.
horrible. Oh, I do want to say, my Photoshop wasn't doing well, so I didn't have a thing. But like the Amazing Jonathan passed away.
Yeah.
One of my favorite I credit
One
the
of mine,
Amazing
too.
Jonathan as the comedian that I saw that made me realize comedy was a thing. Like I saw him live at the Comedy Castle so long ago, and it was so sad. I saw him in 2020. He was very sick then, and but he still pulled off the show. He was still hilarious. But I think Corey Hall actually opened for him. But,
is that right?
Yeah. Also, who we also lost.
How bad is that? Two of our favorite guys gone.
I know. Ken Harris wants to know why Bob isn't in a suit. Bob dresses down. He dresses down for the show.
I used to be in a suit early on in our earlier broadcasts.
So welcome to Crossing the Streams, where we talk about TV shows that you should be binge watching, new and classics. Last week we talked about Long Shot. We talked about Murderville, which I love, and The Tinder Swindler and The Good Place. We did not talk about Annihilation because Bob wasn't here, but we are talking about it today.
Yes,
and
we
The
are.
Wire and Sopranos, but in keeping with the theme of having something, we will not be talking about Teen Wolf, unfortunately, because of technical difficulties. But we're going to get Larry back and we'll do it. But we got some classics to talk about today. We can so we may not have as long a show as normal, but there are 62 hours of amazing streaming content on the YouTube channel. You can check that out. Just search the Jeff DeWaskin Show on YouTube. 62 hours of Crossing the Streams await you. How crazy is that? That's crazy. All right. Bob, let's kick it off with you. Let's do Annihilation.
All right.
This is a Natalie Portman movie. I know nothing about it.
Okay. First of all, I am not a big Natalie Portman fan. I mean, I've never gone to a movie going, oh, Natalie Portman's in it. You know, she always just seems to phone it in. So it could have been this movie could have starred anybody, literally anybody. It could have starred a broom closet in the lead, and still been affectingly weird and disturbing. This movie. Okay, so Natalie Portman's in it. She plays the lead. Oscar Isaac is in it. Plays her husband. Tessa Thompson is in it, plays a scientist, a researcher. Jennifer Jason Leigh, also a researcher. There's others in it, but those are the four big names. And the setup goes like this. The movie, it begins where you find out that there is a place somewhere in the southern United States that has been hit by a meteor. And this meteor has brought with it some alien life form. And that life form has sort of taken over and is taking over more and more of this area. And I guess at the moment it might be like a few square miles, but that's not the real story. The real story is what's happening within this this place. And they call it the shimmer, because as you look at it from the outside, it's this sort of shimmering wall of something and yet nothing. It doesn't speak to what is happening inside, but it is a wall of some kind that they enter. And the movie begins with Oscar Isaac coming out of this, showing up after having been in this place for a year, and he's the only person that has ever come back from it. And he is married tenuously to our pal Natalie Portman, who, as I mentioned, I'm not a big fan of. Anyway, so you get that there is some strain on their relationship. You find out early on that she has had an affair on him. And she believes that he has gone into this shimmer to find out what's going on in there as a sort of death by assignment. He doesn't want to live anymore because she's broken his heart. So she's affected by everything. It's a subplot that I don't know. It might be necessary, it might not be. But the whole point to this movie is there is no real point except to shock you and to disturb you. And when I saw this at the movies, what's it now? 4 years ago. And I thought, okay, I didn't like that movie. And I don't know why I watched it again, but I watched it again and again and again. I've watched this 5 times now. And it's like, it doesn't make any sense to me that I would do this, because I wasn't a big fan of it, but it is so arrestingly disturbing that you have to see it more than once. For just to see what happens within this shimmer to beings, to people, to animals, and also to plant life and things like that. The DNA of everything is distorted and made strange by this alien presence. Now, it's not an alien presence like like Alien, and you don't see them. There's nothing. In fact, you don't see them at all. It's the effect that they're having on everything else around them that is so disturbing that it's one of those movies where it's almost like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which is getting a lot of press again these days. You watch it and it's just so disturbing that you think this had to have happened. This had to have happened. Someone had a camera. This really happened. This is so disgusting. There's so many moments in this movie where I was taken out and then back in. I thought, okay, I don't know who's directing this thing, but this guy is crazy, and I'm loving it. There's a moment where, and this sort of sums up the movie. There is a scene where they are camping, or not camping. They're surviving a night in this ruined sort of cabin within the shimmer, and everything is weird. The noises they hear, things are crawling and making. It's just creepy all the way around. This bear comes into this cabin, and it's not just a bear. I mean, that would be scary enough, but this bear is so distorted. The DNA is so fucked up that it's a bear. You recognize it as a bear, but its jaw is strange. It's almost got like an alligator face to it. But the thing that really is disturbing about it is that it screams like a human being. and it's these scenes, and there are multiple scenes like this where you just go, what in the hell were they thinking? I mean, was it just, let's think of the weirdest thing we can do here to make to put people on the edge of their seat, to disturb them? I don't know what it was, but I did some more reading on it when I decided to do this, as my topic of the show tonight. It didn't do anything at the box office. I think it did something like 25 million, and it was a total bomb. They spent 50 million on it and it tanked. But I went back and looked at the reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. It had an 88% fresh. So
from viewers or from critics?
From critics. Viewers, I think, you might, I don't know if you can look it up while we're talking, but I don't know that it was that much lower. But what's his name? Roper gave it 4. Richard Roper, I don't know, gave it 4 out of 4 stars. And again, I left the movie theater thinking, I don't know what the hell I just watched. I don't know if I enjoyed that or not, but I keep watching it, and it's got that effect on you because it's almost like you can't believe what you just saw. But anyhow, the ending of it, if you thought that the middle was strange, the ending gets even stranger. And I don't want to tip anybody off to what's happening, except that if you don't get a view of the alien itself, you get a view of it in humanoid form, doing strange things, mimicking. To put it bluntly, it's trying to mimic human life. So that's all I want to say about it, because I don't want to ruin it for anybody. I'll say the last thing I'll say is that you remember when Cats, the movie, came out? Remember how awful that was? Okay, I just saw the previews and thought, I don't ever want to see this shit again.
I tried to watch that movie when I was on cable.
Did you?
Okay. For 10 minutes.
Yeah.
it was the most painful experience. It's almost like, forget the, like, the CGI butts or whatever they did, those kind of things.
Yeah.
It was just so horrible.
It was James Corden, for one thing.
He was not even the worst part of it. It was just the whole idea behind all of it was just so horrible.
The uncanny valley, as they say.
It's a horrible play. I've walked out of that play twice.
I walked out of the play. I did too.
Why do you think making a movie version would be? Let's make a movie of the worst play ever.
I'm so glad.
People are going to love it because it's Taylor Swift. No.
I'm so glad you said that, because I walked out of it with my ex-wife. I was so pissed off that I'd spent even the first, the first half of the show up until intermission.
This is what Cats is. It's brilliant. It's brilliant. The first song, Angelica Gift. It's a real catchy first song.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh, this is great. So Cats is like drugs. You get a shot of a really good, catchy song and dance number, and then you don't get anything for 45 minutes until it's like rum tum tugger, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, but every song in between that, you're like, it's got to be this one. This one's got to bring me back.
Yeah.
This one.
And it doesn't happen.
No. And then it ends with memories. Don't kill yourself from this song. And it's like,
music to
it's
kill
a great
yourself
song.
by.
Don't get me wrong. Great song.
Yeah.
But it's like, after like 2 hours, you're like ready to kill yourself. And like, that's the song that's the best song. And it's like, oh, this was poems that,
T.S. Eliot.
Yeah,
they were bad when they were written.
I don't know. Okay.
Well, the last
see, Bill, these go anywhere. You never know.
Yeah, we're all over the place. I'll wind it up. I'll wind it up with this: the link between the Cats and between Cats, the movie, and Annihilation is that somebody, and you have to watch this on YouTube. Somebody put the Annihilation score against the Cats preview, right? And it's so. This music in Annihilation will ruin your day, but you'll want to hear it again anyway. So, and just YouTube Cats Annihilation, and you'll be entertained for 2.5 minutes.
That sounds like
that.
That sounds like the price of admission right there for this entire. The cast is great. I mean, Benedict Wong, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Oscar Isaac, Natalie Portman. It's a great cast. A lot of recognizable faces in it. So.
Yeah.
All right, we'll check it out. Another one of those. I hate it, but I've watched it 10 times movies from Bob Phillips. Okay.
5 times.
All right, let's turn it over to Bill for 1 second. Let me get the image up here. We're going to talk about The Wire. This is The Wire. We're covering The Wire, and we're going to talk about The Wire. Let's do that. Bill is on mute, so I'm going to unmute him. I don't know why Bill is on mute. You're suddenly can't unmute your guest. Their mic isn't connected.
Uh-oh. Well, it was a moment ago.
Oh,
that's usually my problem.
It's did you do something, Bill? This show is doomed.
There's only 3 of us. We can't have technical difficulties now.
Oh man, too funny.
It's because he's my guest.
No, he was talking fine a second ago. What was fine? All right, well, let's go. Let's Bill, while you're trying to figure it out, try to unplug and maybe plug it back in. I don't know. Without Natalie Portman, we wouldn't have Luke and Leia, and then we wouldn't know about Anakin Skywalker's hatred of sand. So true, Jerry.
It's course.
And of course, as
gets in your ass crack.
Like we got a bot, so we're good. All right, everyone drink. Jerry's called it.
We got a bot?
Technical difficulties. So there you go.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you too. You begin hating yourself for going into the shimmer.
Nope, that didn't. It was working before, Bill. I'm not sure. Not sure what happened. What's worse, Bob? Bill that is here and we can't hear, or Larry that couldn't even make it and we couldn't even hear? I don't know. Everybody, all of our guests.
Nothing,
Larry will
Bill.
be back. Larry was super fun. He did.
Oh, there we go. Bill's back.
Cool. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
All right, let me do another intro for you. Let's get this restarted. All right, Bill's back, and we're going to talk about The Wire, one of the greatest shows ever. Take it away, Bill.
Thanks, Jeff. So The Wire, apparently, I just found this out recently, ended in 2008. So I'm watching it just in time, or just on schedule at exactly the right time. And the only reason I'm watching it really is because I have a couple of friends who've been hounding me for several years to watch it. Usually right after I talk about how great The Sopranos is, right? And how great that show was. The retort is you got to watch The Wire, because if it's not better than The Sopranos, it's at least as good as The Sopranos, right? So I just did a rewatch of The Sopranos since the first time it was on. I watched it with my daughter, who was a baby when it was first on, right? So we enjoyed it, and I said, while we're doing this, let's go ahead and watch The Wire. So I guess one could call it a crime drama, right? It's based on some happenings with criminals and police departments in Baltimore, Maryland. Another reason I wanted to watch it also, by the way, is I'm a big fan of the creator, David Simon. I follow him on Twitter. I'm a big fan of his politics and his anger, right? If you follow David Simon on Twitter, though, you know what I'm talking about. He's a lunatic. Mm-hmm. And he's one of those people who you want to say, this guy should really be above this, like above fighting with people on Twitter, but he completely isn't. And he has no shame about what he says to people on Twitter. I kind of dig that. And I guess he's got some fuck you money, so he doesn't care what he says. He can get away with anything, right?
Yeah.
He might be, I think he's been called the angriest man in Hollywood. And if you watch The Wire, you can see why. So anyway, I guess it's loosely categorized a crime drama. And it's the best way I can describe the plot is to say that it's fucking bleak. It is grim. And but it's superbly acted and superbly written. And the cast of characters is excellent, with the exception, I think, of the lead man. Who's and have you seen it, Jeff? Have you seen?
I've seen the first season and a half.
Okay, so I should back up and say that we're about the same point then. All I've seen so far is the first season and a couple episodes of the second season. But the lead actor is this guy. What's his name?
Dominic West.
That's him, who curiously I found is a Brit, which makes no sense at all. That a British guy would be
Brits are always invading and
apparently, yeah,
putting on English accents and taking our American roles.
Exactly. I couldn't find one American dude to take this role. The guy is a Brit, and it's interesting. Although his British accent, you never really hear it. You hear that there's something off with his. Every once in a while, you hear that there's something a little weird about his voice and his delivery. But if I didn't read afterward that he's from Great Britain, I wouldn't have guessed that. I just thought there was something going on with his voice or his cadence or delivery that was a little odd. But at any rate, everybody else I think is cast wonderfully. He's just adequate in my view, and not because he's a Brit. Again, because I thought this before I discovered he was a Brit. But here's the conundrum here. I'm watching it the first season, and I said, yeah, it's very good. But you know what? It's not as good as The Sopranos because it needs a really dynamic lead character like James Gandolfini was in The Sopranos. But then I realized how ridiculous that was. That's like saying, oh, the Knicks would be great. They just need a Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? Like what show wouldn't be great with James Gandolfini in the lead, right? So you can't penalize the guy for not being James Gandolfini. That said, I still think the show would benefit because it's so smartly written and so goddamn grim. It would benefit with a different kind of lead, is a little more charismatic than this guy. But the rest of the actors were really brilliantly cast, and they're great actors. The theme song, although not as memorable as the one, in my opinion, from The Sopranos, it's Tom Waits' "Down in the Hole." And I guess the first season is Waits' version, and then subsequent seasons, and I might be getting this part wrong, are somebody else singing it. But the first season, this theme song is just great. It really grows on you, and it's perfect for the grim nature of the show. Again, it's really dark, and if you have a really cynical, pessimistic worldview, as I do, it can only almost be too much, this show. Almost too much. And again, I have to keep going back and comparing it to The Sopranos because it's the show that everybody says is as good as The Sopranos or better, especially from HBO's platform. I have to keep comparing it to that. And the difference is, one of the big differences is The Sopranos was grim, right? And that's about existentialism and depression through the prism of a mobster, right? But this is just fucking grim. But there was lots of humor in The Sopranos, right? It was conceived as a black comedy. There's nothing comedic about at all about The Wire. There are some funny moments and things that are scripted to be mood lighteners, right? But there's really nothing funny about it. And again, if you're very cynical and very pessimistic, this fits right into your worldview and affirms that. That being that for every 2 good guys, there's 30 scumbags. That's just the way it is. And that applies to both the criminals and the cops and the guys who work at the docks and the politicians and everybody. This guy McNulty has a good heart and is always busting balls. He's a ball buster because he's trying to do his job and get things done the right way, right? To do good. So he's seen as a ball buster by everybody else. And everybody just puts up roadblocks to try to stop him because they want to protect their ass, or they want to get paid, or they're interested in careerism. And nobody's interested in doing the things that we were taught, like cops or good people are supposed to want to do. Nobody, except for this guy McNulty and 3 or 4 other guys on the show. Just everybody's a scumbag. And I guess if you go into the show not believing that, you're really going to dislike the show. If you go into the show believing that already, it's cool. You're getting your worldview affirmed, but it's grim, right? It's just grim because there's not a lot of comic relief there. But it is it's a very good show, and I will probably watch it to the end. And I understand that it's not all about the same subject matter on all seasons. It switches from the police to corruption to politics to the docks, and it's, as I understand it, it's mostly really about the decay of American cities and the collapse of the middle class. And knowing that going into watching it, that puts a sharp focus on what you're watching, and it really goes to great lengths to display how awful it is, how bad corruption is and crime. And there's a great moment toward the end of the first season, Jeff, that you'll remember, when the cops finally bust this drug lord, right, and bust up his operation in the projects where they're dealing heroin, and they get him on some kind of light convoluted stuff, and he only gets like 7 years, even though he murdered like 30 people. But as soon as they take him away, they go back to the projects, and there's just new guys there dealing drugs. Like they got rid of these bad guys, and new bad guys rolled right in, and it just kept going. Like there was no pause where anybody could even get clean. Like they just shuffled these guys off, and new guys came in and took their place. And I have absolutely no doubt that that's the way it really happens.
Yeah. And
it's so, if you're looking for something that's light, you might want to check out like a Three's Company or some shit, or Everyone Loves Raymond, right?
So I've heard that season 2 you got to get through, but season 3, 4, and 5 are stellar.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I thought season 1 was great, but season 2 does a radical shift because all the characters kind of spread apart in season 1.
Yeah.
At the end of season 1. So, but I heard like 3, 4, and 5 are stellar, like crazy good.
I've heard that too.
So The Wire is so grim that Annihilation would be the sorbet between it.
Well, a lot of great shows are grim, right? Breaking Bad was not a uplifting show. It's considered one of the greatest shows ever. The Sopranos is not an uplifting show. The Wire is not an uplifting show. Most things that are that great are usually in the drama.
I agree.
Is it? No, I haven't seen a single episode of it. I know the actor that you're talking about, the Brit that plays the lead. Does the cast rotate from season to season? Did they go from like different locations and new people are introduced? And
well, Yes, that's exactly
New
what it is.
pairings.
New pairings.
Yes,
Okay,
exactly.
but do the same lead characters stay, or do they kind of get
So
shuffled
far,
off?
again, I'm only
Okay.
in the couple episodes into the second season, and yes, the
Okay.
characters from the lead characters are in it. But a perfect example of what I mean by grim is this little team was formed to bust this drug cartel in Baltimore, right? And then because they were good at what they did and pissed people off, they all got busted and sent down to different departments. Like this McNulty character got demoted off to like the tugboat, right?
Demoted.
So yeah, I don't even know if demoted is the right word, but he pissed some people off. He pissed everybody off by doing his job. So he was taken out of homicide or whatever he was doing, and now he's on a tugboat. And still kicking ass and busting balls. But again, the mere fact that his role is as a ball buster when he's just trying to do what we expect should be done, right, is really kind of the underlying theme of the show. Right.
Okay.
Right. All right. Well, thanks,
Bill.
Much. Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. You're welcome.
All right. Let's do this next one, which I know this next show we're going to discuss is.
I haven't heard of this one. Sopranos? Explain it.
It's a hard A, Soprano. So we're going to be discussing The Sopranos. The Sopranos debuted in January of 1999. There were 6 seasons. There were only 86 episodes of The Sopranos. Now, this obviously aired a long time ago, and I just completely rewatched all 6 seasons. The questions I have in my mind are, why are there 6 seasons and not 7? Since the 6th season seems to be labeled A and B, but B seems to have just as many as A and as many as any other season. I also recall frustration from The Sopranos in my original watching, which was how much time went between the seasons. I remember, and then when I was kind of going back and looking at it, sure enough, I mean, the first season aired in 99 and then 2000 a year later, which is kind of normal, a year later. But actually, that's not even a normal. Usually it's like 8 months later or something, I think, with a normal show. But this is HBO. Anyway, so then 2001, season 3 aired, 2002, season 4. But season 5 didn't air until 2004. So we've jumped from 2002 to 2004. And then season 6 was in 2006. So again, 2 years later. So I remember not even remembering the show was on when one of the seasons had come back. I just assumed it had ended. I mean, that's how much time had gone by. Now, I do know there were lawsuits during the original run. James Gandolfini had a lawsuit, and I did read something once that he actually wrote checks for $30,000 to many members of the cast because of the delay. So James Gandolfini, who we lost a little bit ago, was a very upstanding person, not just an amazing actor. And so he definitely took care of people when they were doing it. So interesting enough, The Sopranos is it's an American crime drama created by David Chase. One of the things as a Detroit boy that would always catch my eye is right at the end of everything, Todd Kessler's name would come up. That ended after, I think, 2 or 3 seasons. But Todd Kessler, his brother Glenn, who was one of the people in the van that would sometimes listen into The Sopranos, went to Sunday school with me at Temple Israel. I didn't know Todd, but I did know his brother Glenn. And then the two of them went on to write Damages
6 degrees, baby,
with Glenn Close. So interesting. So originally, The Sopranos was conceived as a movie about a mobster that needed to go to therapy. And then David Chase was convinced to turn that into a series. That premise may sound familiar as it was done by Robert De Niro and Billy Crystal.
Great movie.
2 movies. Very well done as well. The interesting thing about The Sopranos is that it existed in our world, meaning they referenced that movie. They had celebrities not as only as guests that would come on and be unique characters for The Sopranos, but they would have like Daniel Baldwin played Daniel Baldwin in a later season. He played someone in a movie Cleaver. That was a movie that they made in the show. And Janine Garofalo and Sandra Bullock were in a movie, and Jon Favreau got into a scuffle with Christopher Moltisanti, and David Lee Roth was playing poker, and so was Frank Sinatra Jr. and Nancy Sinatra sang at Phil Leotardo's when he became boss, and like so there was definitely a melding of like real people would be in it. So you would think that The Sopranos was in our real world.
Did if it was in the real world, did Janine Garoppolo complain about being on the show? I was just wondering if it was that real.
All right.
Anywho,
she is miserable, isn't she?
Yeah,
all
the
right.
worst.
She's miserable.
So The Sopranos was, I think, credited as one of the very first, if not the first movie where it was an anti-hero that was the lead of the show. Tony Soprano, wonderfully played by James Gandolfini. Quick side note, Stevie Van Zandt actually did try to get that role. They really liked him. He had introduced the Rascals at the Hall of Fame, and they really liked his personality, brought him in. But HBO wanted a much more established actor in the role of Tony Soprano, so they created the role.
Once at least.
Yeah. So they created the role of Silvio. Thank you. Of role, the consigliere. So it was interesting. The guy who played Paulie Walnuts was a real crime guy.
That is, yeah.
And in his contract was, I can never be a rat.
Is that right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I was it's so fun. The acting in this show is just tremendous. I mean, James Gandolfini is amazing, but I'm not so sure that Edie Falco didn't outact everyone on this show. But the two of them together were really interesting. The thread of the show is you have season one, you have the reigning crime boss. He dies of cancer, so there's a power struggle. And that's a theme throughout all 6 seasons, where there's always a power struggle. And Tony is starting to deal with these panic attacks and family issues. And his mother, who's wonderful, Nancy Marchand,
yep.
who was in the Lou Grant show as well. Amazing. She dies during the run, and then they famously actually digitized her face so they could complete a scene before they killed off her character. But she was beyond incredible. I mean, like every actor in the show is beyond incredible. Anyway, so Tony obviously had some issues growing up as the son of a mob boss and this mother that he had, and so he goes into therapy. He's got to keep the therapy a secret. So Dr. Melfi, who was Lorraine Bracco, who was in Goodfellas, another little quick trivia: 27 actors were in common between Sopranos and Goodfellas. So that's really interesting. So in a rewatch of a show that I hadn't seen in 20 years, it was interesting because I didn't remember everything and kind of remembered some things, right? The only thing I'm going to discuss in detail is the end, the last scene, because I think, like most TV shows, those become iconic in themselves, and I think people are aware of what happened, regardless if they've ever seen it, like the end of Newhart or any of those. But I'll get to that in a second. Each season amazingly just kind of opened up and brought in great new characters and new backstories. It's in the same way that Breaking Bad was amazing, in the sense that every season opened up the world a little bit more than you thought it was from before. So new people would come in, new cousins, new this, new that. And you kept having new stories. You had Richie Aprile coming in, who was in season 2, which was the character of the brother of the boss who had just died, but he would have been the boss of Pear had he not gotten to jail. And then, so he comes in, and they all have to deal with Tony, who's in charge. And Tony, if you got to kind of remember, or you have to understand, was the little kid. Like they all knew him as like the kid. So if you picture like your little cousin that you grew up, and all of a sudden he's running the family, right? He's the one, like, because even though he made Uncle Junior his uncle boss, when Jackie Aprile, the boss, died in season 1, he only gave him boss a name. He was really running the family from behind the scenes. The cast of characters in this is just amazing, though. One thing that's actually incredible is The Sopranos has one of those openings that it's hard not to skip it, but because I was watching it with my wife, she made me skip it. And also when you're watching 80 times in a row, that can add a little bit. But the opening song for The Sopranos and the cutting of it. So, flash forward to the Super Bowl, and when they recreated that, and they used the same cinematographer, David Chase, some minor changes of things that maybe they couldn't get rights to, but they had Jamie Lee Sigler reprising the role. She was the soprano in there, and then at the end when she gets out and hugs Robert Eiler, her brother, I had all the feels. Like I was like, but I also had just been binging it, so. But I think it was a testament to one of the reasons that because of the pandemic, a lot of people have been watching The Sopranos. And so that's why that resonated. But oh my God,
it was great.
They completely redid that. Now, so anyway, season 3, you get Joe Pantoliano. I can't say
Joey Pants.
Joey Pants comes in. He's amazing. You know him from The Matrix as well and a million other things. And so his character comes in, messes things up. You got New York you're dealing with. you got the New York crime boss at some point. That there's power struggles there. So you got Johnny Sacks, and everybody's like, friends and not friends and whacking stuff. And it's really interesting because with the underpinning of the whole therapy thing, just how they justify everything. Like, he's got to go, got to kill that guy, got to kill him. And it's like,
it's just business.
It's just interesting because how many times like Tony in therapy will say, I'm a good guy. Why did stuff happen to me? Why did my kid get sick? I'm a good guy. And this is the scene where he would just maybe cut up someone's entire body and dumped it into a swamp or something. And that's made up, but probably very similar to the things that really happened. And then none of them ever trust each other. None of them. It's just the dynamic between all of the characters is so insane, season to season to season. In season 5, you get Steve Buscemi comes in and plays a major part as Tony's cousin who went away to jail many years ago. And Tony Soprano himself had meant to be at that place, and then he didn't go, and so he didn't go away. And so there's all those guilt things that they have to deal with. And then there's some tragedies that take place, like near tragedies that take place that the families have to deal with along the way. And then there's always these questioning of everything going on. And I got to say, Michael Imperioli, who plays Christopher Moltisanti, is incredible. Absolutely.
He is.
Throughout. Adriana.
He was born for that role.
Yeah, the person, Adriana, all the characters are so amazing.
Oh, sorry.
I was gonna say Edie Falco though is Carmela.
Yeah,
Carmela. Thank you. Is Carmela. It's an interesting thing watching Carmela. It's like she understands at some points what it means to why she's a recipient of all the riches that she has, and her struggle back and forth. She eventually kind of gives into it.
Yep.
And just allows for it and just kind of says, well, as long as I'm getting what I'm getting, I'm gonna allow this. And they all kind of turn their eyes. But that was the interesting kind of ongoing dynamic throughout it, as well as Tony Soprano pretending he's waste management and all this kind of stuff, with his kids not knowing, but they really know. And all the kids at school, their friends know that this, AJ's dad is a mobster, that kind of stuff. And so it's just a really interesting. I loved every second of revisiting The Sopranos. It is without a doubt, after rewatching it again, hands down one of the greatest shows ever made, if not the greatest show ever made. TV Guide, I think, named it the greatest one. The Writers Guild named it the greatest written show ever. And I think generally between that, Breaking Bad, and The Wire, we're fortunate to have lived in a time where the resurgence, the evolution of TV was such that it became so great to give us like these types of shows. And It's so amazing. I rewatched. It has one of the most controversial endings of any show ever, and it basically just goes blank, and the and it just freaked people out beyond anything because one, you got to keep in mind, here we are on June 10th, 2007, and everyone's watching the final episode of The Sopranos. And the scene is in a diner and the family's kind of all coming in, it's Tony gets there and then Carmela and then AJ, and then they're all waiting on Meadow, and Don't Stop Believing is playing. And so they're all there. And then all of a sudden the screen just goes black. And everyone in the country thought their TV had broke. They thought HBO had broke, right?
Yeah.
And so
I remember reading that.
And so 3 seconds go by, and then the credits just roll, and everyone's like, "Wait a minute, that was it.
Yeah,
that was it. He just ended it like that." Now, I did some research. I'm going to say, if you don't want to hear what I have to say, now's the time to turn off. And I'll end by saying,
yeah, I'm out of
The
here.
Sopranos is the greatest show ever, and you should definitely binge watch it. You don't have to binge watch it over a weekend. Slow burn it, just make it part of, what you do. It's better than most things that are on TV. But after reading a lot of stuff on the end, my belief is that he was shot and died. And if you watch the pattern of the show, that particular episode, he gets in there, Tony's there, and every time the door opens, there's a bell, which is the door, and he looks up, and the camera cuts to his point of view. And then you see his point of view, the people coming in the door. They do that about 4 or 5 times. Mm-hmm. Now the tension is the Meadow can't park the car, and they lay some things along the way, some clues along the way. One, entire conversations with Bobby Bacala about I bet you never even see it coming. Right.
Yeah.
And then there's somebody in the actual diner who they kind of looks very seedy, and they kind of follow him to the bathroom, which is, some believe, a reference to the famous Godfather scene that's supposedly Tony's favorite scene, that, they go to the bathroom, get the gun, and come out. Why would they follow a random guy into the bathroom, right? But the interesting thing is, coming out of the bathroom would be a clear shot to Tony. So the actual strife with Meadow not being able to park is, if Meadow had parked and got in there, she would have been sitting next to Tony. And the other rule they had laid out was they don't hit the family.
Right.
So Meadow would have been blocking Tony, and he wouldn't have died. That's where the whole tension of her not being able to park comes in. So when she walks in, or we think she walks in, meaning she finally parks and she closes the door, and then we think she walks in, you hear the bell, you see him look up, and in what would have turned in the pattern of everything that had happened up until that point, from his point of view, it goes black. And to me, that signifies he died. Like he was popped right in the head by the guy coming out of the bathroom. Now, could David Chase have added a couple quick scenes to maybe make it a little clearer that had happened? If in fact,
that's the point. He didn't want to end it clearly.
But that to me is what I believe 100% right there. And I'm transcribing. I'm subscribing to, some theories that I read online, but to me, I rewatched, and that's what I believe.
Fan theories. Well, that makes sense to me. I mean, that's as good as explanation as I've ever heard. I just want to say that I loved, Lorraine Bracco, the best legs on television, maybe ever. And Fade to Black.
She played a Jew in Goodfellas. She was Henry Hill's Jewish girlfriend.
Yes.
She was all Italian in Sopranos, but in the Goodfellas, she was a nice Jewish girl.
Yeah.
About the ending, I had always subscribed to that theory also, that it was just that Tony was getting whacked, and the people who thought otherwise were thinking otherwise based on sentiment. They didn't want Tony to get whacked, even though he's a scumbag. And that's part of the charm and the attraction of the series is he's a scumbag, but you kind of root for him, right? That's the whole thing of being an anti-hero, right?
Yeah.
So I dismissed the possibility that he hadn't been whacked, again, based on the sentiment of others. But a couple of things occurred to me. And Only one of them organically. The other one I read somewhere, and it made sense to me. And this is it. That well, first of all, we never see Tony getting whacked. That's the basic thing, right? But also, when the screen goes black, we're watching from our perception, from our perspective, not Tony's, right? So Chase is almost saying the audience, and I'm sure you've read this too, that Chase is saying the audience has been whacked, and we kind of deserved it for rooting for gangsters. But really, that seriously, because Chase, I've read, is kind of a prick like that too. Like it can be kind of curmudgeonly, and I dig that. That's cool. It's his art. But really, that we're not seeing it from Tony's perspective. It doesn't go black from Tony's perspective. It goes black from the viewer's perspective. So the viewer has gotten whacked. Okay, which interested me. And the other thing that just occurred to me recently was, as far as we know, and this is by no means concrete, given the nature of the Byzantine nature of mafia guys, but the threat of Tony getting whacked had passed, right? The New York family met with Tony's people, right? And they said, we're going to call us off. We're going to have a truce. And remember, they met in that darkened garage. And that's why he was out and having a good time, because the threat to his life had passed. And that's why he was, I'm sorry, there's a bug flying around in here that's getting my attention.
Well, but I think the other thing you learn is there's never a time where the threat doesn't pass. Like, Phil Leotardo didn't want to be boss and then changed his mind.
Right.
Without getting into details. But of the show, so I thought about that too. And my trailing theory would have been they would have hired somebody to do it. And it's possible that hit was still out.
Sure.
Right?
Sure.
Especially
and
if
that's possible. Yeah.
But I don't after rewatching it. And if you believe that David Chase had a very specific way of shooting that last scene, I believe that it was a cut back and forth from Tony's point of view, not the audience point of view. Yeah. Which to me made sense, and it makes sense that he would die. Why wouldn't he die? What I mean? Why wouldn't
he's dead?
He's dead. Well, he died in real life too, but
yeah, I know. But I mean, he's dead in the show.
I think so.
Yeah.
I think so. I thought it was brilliant. I mean, people don't like endings like that. They like, but I think if there was a definitive answer to what happened, people could rewatch it and accept it.
Right.
I think it didn't help. Jerry said he sent me a link about David Chase discussing the ending, but if he didn't let it go 20 years, before discussing it at all, then, people may have accepted the genius of it was.
Sure. Right. Exactly right.
So.
And plus the show had a history of not giving viewers exactly what the viewers wanted. Right. And without going into detail, if you don't want to, there's the guy who raped Melfi, right? We all knew what we wanted to happen there, right?
Isn't it horrible that we wanted that to happen?
Of course, no.
And that's how much they played us. Like that
exactly right. But that was brilliant. It was brilliant the way it was played. That she kept her integrity, and that was just fantastic. And again, I was doing a rewatch with my daughter and saying, this is why this is so great. We all want this to happen, but he's not letting it happen the way we wanted to because it wouldn't be right? It was just so great. The thing I discovered doing a rewatch also, the whole viewing experience was different. And you touched on this, Jeff, because there was so much time between seasons. It felt like we waited forever between season, and binging it once a week, which is the way we did. We did that, I think, actually we did an episode or two a night. So it seemed like when something would happen that I remembered, I was like, wow, I don't remember that happening that soon in the series, like when Pussy gets whacked, for example. But because we were watching it every night as opposed to once a week and then a year between seasons, it felt much more drawn out, and like things were happening later than they actually were. But
right. Yeah, I think there's a nicety to a show like this to binge and enjoy it very thoroughly. Like when I watched Breaking Bad, actually, I binged the entire series up until the last 8 episodes and watched those live.
Okay.
But it was great because there is a lot you miss and forget in between a year that these shows are off the air, that, there are a lot of details. And so it's nice to be able to watch something kind of straight through.
Sure.
You know,
I
after,
agree.
when there's a full body of work there that you can
Yep.
tackle. Cool. Well, hopefully we just saved
Great reviews,
HBO.
gents.
Hopefully we saved HBO and people are going to flock to HBO and watch The Sopranos.
Yeah.
Well, hey, we're at the end. Bill, thank you so much for
My
joining
pleasure.
us.
My pleasure.
Yeah.
I hope I didn't,
No,
didn't disappoint.
You were great. You were great, except
Thank you.
for
Sorry
you
for the
did.
technical
Great job.
problems. Sorry.
It's all right. We made it through. We made it through. Remind everyone that you got a Twitter. Where can people, or just say goodbye if you don't want to.
Yeah. You can follow me if you'd like. If you're so compelled to follow me on Twitter at William Dettloff. At William Dettloff. Look for Ringside Seat magazine. If you Google me, I got a couple books out there that you can buy and blah, blah, and yada, yada.
Awesome. All right.
All right.
Jerry says, great episode. And Lee, yay, Lee.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Good night, Lee. All right. So in terms of Bob and I, real quick, we each got our own very special podcast. Bob is, of course, half of the Sal and Bob Show. I'm host of the Jeff Dwoskin Comedy Show, live from Detroit. All the podcast apps, you can get either one of our podcasts. Definitely listen to both. They're both amazing, even though I've only been on Bob and Sal once.
You're doing the live show. You're getting paid. Stop. Hey, I'm going to be at the Kenosha Comedy Club March 4th and 5th at the Kenosha Comedy Festival. I'll be headlining that festival. And Sal and I are co-headlining that. He's in one place, I'm in another. So come out and check that out.
That's exciting. Also, don't forget to vote our Detroit for my podcast, Live from Detroit. And March 11th, I'll be at the Magic Bag Theater with Tammy Pescatelli.
There you go.
So there you go. My big return. I'm coming in strong.
Coming in hot.
Coming in hot. All right, everyone. Thank you so much.
Thanks, guys.
We'll see you next week.
Hang with us, Bill. Don't hang up.
And that has been another episode of Crossing the Streams. Join us every Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Facebook and YouTube. Follow the Jeff Dwoskin Show on YouTube to be alerted every time we go live with your hosts, Jeff Dwoskin, Ron Lippett, Howard Rosner, Bob Phillips, Sal D'Amelio. We're all in the socials. Follow us. Listen to our podcasts, live from Detroit, the Jeff Dwoskin Show, the Sal and Bob Show. Check them all out, and we'll see you next week and every week when we cross more streams right here. See you then.